Hello, this is Cost Chapter 3, number 32. So this one has a sales mix. And just actually see if you can write out the steps. So just pause this video and see if you can write out the steps. Okay, assuming you've paused it, the first thing that you do, the steps are to one, figure out the contribution margin and or contribution margin percent. Second, multiply it by the sales mix. Third, add the two numbers you get together, and then you use the formula of fixed cost divided by contribution margin or contribution margin percent. So in this one we have two products, new customer and upgrade. Fixed costs are 16.5. Sales mix is 60% and 40%. Okay, so I have selling price minus variable costs. Notice manufacturing and marketing, what's a variable or a fixed cost. You don't split it up between cost of goods sold and operating expenses like you do in the income statement. It's simply fixed or variable. Okay, so we have 65 and 35, which means contribution margin of 130 and 80. So I've got that right there. Then my sales mix is, I'll go down here, it looks like I ended with that one in the formula. So let's go down here. 60 and 40. So I take 130 times 60% and 80 times 40%. And this one, right here. So now I add those together, get 110. Fixed cost divided by contribution margin of they call it a basket of goods. So the basket of goods is 60% of new customers and 40% of upgrade customers. Okay, so then I get fixed cost divided by contribution margin of the basket gives me 150,000 baskets. Okay, 150,000 baskets, 60% of that is new customers and 40% is upgrade. So I have 90,000 and 60,000 of them. So notice they add up to 150, but 60% of it is that. Okay, and so then I can, if the question asks, let's see, what is the break-even point in units, assuming the 40-60% sales mix is obtained. So I guess I'm done. 90,000 and 60,000. Let me pause there. Okay, now sometimes you don't necessarily have to do 60%, 40%. Sometimes they do, 6 to 4, which simplifies as 3 to 2. So 3 of these for every 2 of those, if that makes it easier to understand. But then be careful when you'll get different than 50,000, then you have to take it times 3 and 2, by the way. So you have to, these come down there. Okay, so question number 2 is, if the sales mix is obtained, what is the operating income when 170,000 units are sold? Okay, so I have 170,000 units. 60% of them are new, 40% of them are upgrades. So 60% of 170 is 102, 40% is 68. The contribution margin per unit is 130 and 80. Notice I could do 195 times 102, 65 times 102,000, but notice I can just take a shortcut and start with here of 130 times 102,000. So, so my total contribution margin is 1,013,260,000. I guess, unless I have looks like I have a comma in the wrong place. And so this one is 68,000 units times 80, and again, you could take 68,000 times 115, subtract 68,000 times 35 to get 68,000 times 80. Okay, so I have add those together for my contribution margin. So that's my total contribution margin. So the question asks for, what is operating income? So I know my contribution margin is that. I subtract my fixed costs. So my operating income is 2,200,000. Okay. Over here, let's go back to 1 on why I did this 130 and 80. It was really basically to check to make sure I indeed did solve the problem. So I said I made 90,000 of these and 60,000 of those. And the question said break-even point of my 40 and 60. So if it's break-even, then I should make 0. So I took the 90 times the 130 and the 60 times the 80, got those two numbers, and I subtracted my fixed costs, and I indeed did come out to 0. So it's just a check. You do not have to do this, but sometimes you feel better about it. Show how the break-even point changes when the following customer mixes. And this is where it's really nice to just set it up on a computer, because I can just keep changing my sales mix. So you can see that I did this one last because it's in there, but I could just change those two numbers. If I set up my formulas correctly, everything comes out correct as far as the final answer. So that's what I did down here. If you plug in 40 and 60, you get 165,000. If you plug in 60 and 40, you get 150,000. If you plug in 80 and 20, you get 137,500 for break even total. So that's really what that has to do with. Okay, so that's all there is to number 32.